On this episode of ResiWeek, HTSA Education partners with CEDIA Expo, and the security industry pushes the 3G sunset. All this and more on this episode of ResiWeek.
The network for the AV industry.
What are you listening to?
This
is AV.
This
is AVNation.
This is AVNation.
This is ResiWeek, episode 288, Avi-Palooza.
Support for AVNation is brought to you by Access Networks and by
Atlona, the go-to provider for AV signal distribution and control in corporate, higher education, and residential spaces.
Welcome to this episode of ResiWeek. This is your weekly roundup of all the latest news and stories for the residential AV industry. I'm your host, Matty Scott for AVNation.TV. And this week we are pleased to be joined by two of my good friends. First, the gentleman making noise in the background is Mr. Richard Fregosa of Fregosa Design. What's up, Uncle Richie?
Mellow West Coast greetings. Good to be here. Actually, in a lovely summer day for us, which normally it's a little colder.
A little colder? What's cold?
70-ish. So
that is cool. It's like 90 degrees.
As I say in Fahrenheit, I think it's at the. How much is that in the Fahrenheit?
Well, I know what Fahrenheit are. I have no idea what Celsius
in the Celsius is.
You're asking the wrong guy. You know I don't know that. Making me look bad right off the top. Then we have Mr. Avi Rosenthal. He is a partner at Blue Saab. How you doing, Avi?
A very active East Coast welcome. So you got East Coast and West Coast represented here.
I like
it.
You
know, and it's a nice hot summer day here. It's about 90 degrees here in Virginia. So
how's the humidity though? That's the kicker.
Oh, I think if you walk outside, you essentially
melt,
condense.
Yeah, that's about where we're at right now. It's disgusting. We were supposed to be joined by our good friend Samantha Ventura as well from CEDIA. Unfortunately, she had some family stuff come up, so our thoughts are with her. Gentlemen, let's kick this off with a story that comes to us from Residential Tech Today. HTSA is partnering with Emerald Exhibitions to offer special training at CEDIA Expo. There is going to be, get ready for it, a Tommapalooza presented by HTSA. As obviously the buying group, they're offering a bunch of their training to the community in general, which I think is nice because I don't believe we've seen that before. They've got, I believe, a 3-day training track that's available. You can check that out on the story, or I would assume on cediaexpo.com/attend/Tommapalooza. They've got some keynotes, a bunch of lighting stuff, and some home theater stuff. Mr. Fregosa, let's start with you on this. This is, I don't want to say this kind of came out of nowhere, but as I mentioned off the top, I'm pleasantly surprised that they're offering HTSA branded training at Expo. So I'm surprised about that in general. But specifically, I'm surprised that they're making it available to everyone. Is this, I'm going to assume that this is a big win for everyone involved and everyone attending because more education is obviously good. What does this mean, though, that they're offering this to non-members for the first time at Expo of all places?
Well, I mean, I think you have to thank Tom Doherty for it. Tom's a past president of CEDIA, board of directors, lifetime achievement, a winner. He was one of the original core CEDIA founders. If you take a look back at it, and so. Is it surprising? No, I think it's great. He's working with, I think he's with the director of the new technology initiative. Mm-hmm. And Tom's always been, looking to advance our industry and advancing it through education. And so by bringing HTSA, which traditionally deals more with the retail style integrator, mm-hmm. From a buying group standpoint, and finding a way to bridge that across with the quote unquote custom or the other side of the integration business. It just makes sense. At that point, I have a feeling that they kind of sat down and said, well, past CEDIA president, CEDIA Expo, Emerald, HTSA, we're all in the same industry. It just kind of seemed like a no-brainer to open it up, and I think that Tom probably did a great job at explaining CEDIA's ability to come in and that integrator base mm-hmm. to come in to learn about HTSA which they might not have been exposed to. And I think the HTSA, the organization as itself, having the ability to reach out to the CEDIA channel. And I mean, it's all about membership, right? And when you can build your member base, you can provide more value to your members. You can bring more members in. You've got the education track. What is it? A rising tide raises all boats. And that's kind of the way that I view it, is that it's not necessarily serendipitous, but I would be surprised if it hadn't come together, given that Tom was involved in the process.
Avi, do you see this as a kind of a one-off? Do you see this as something where we're going to start seeing participation at this level from some of the other buying groups and some of the other trade partners? Because education has been typically a CEDIA-owned aspect, and obviously they have the broad certifications. A lot of the buying groups have their own training. It's, we'll say, different than kind of the aim of a lot of the CEDIA training. Then you obviously have had manufacturer training. Do you expect this to become a huge smorgasbord in the future of every buying group, every group of people out there? I'm going to butcher the name, but I think the MCIAA or whatever that group is, they're doing a panel on work at home as well, and a large educational offering for that. Is this just going to become this behemoth of education?
So I think that it is, because to go back to something that Rich was saying, a rising tide rises all boats. I think that the aspect of education in our industry is highly regarded. It's highly necessary. Things are getting more technical, not less technical. The integrators are being forced to stay one step ahead of the consumers. And the consumers, let's face it, are getting more and more educated every day. The beauty of the interwebs is that everybody can log on and Google search something and figure out what an answer is. So I think it's important that the integrators stay educated. And to that end, if I'm sitting in Pennsylvania right now in Powerhouse's headquarters, I'm thinking to myself, why didn't I think of this? Because let's face it, they're getting a lot of play. HTSA is going to get a lot of push. You could see this as a recruiting opportunity for them as well, right? Come and see what our training is like, and then come see what our buying group is like. And so I think it's a good opportunity for people who may have been on the fence about a buying group to experience what it's like to be part of one. So I think it is going to, maybe not start a trend, but certainly kick off an opportunity for the buying groups to look around and say, hey, how are we doing outreach, right? What opportunities are we taking to reach new members, to reach new opportunities, and to further our integrators, right? To bring value to our integrators. Let's face it, education's expensive. HTSA is lowering the bar a little bit on the costs. They're going to give some really great content, and they're not going to charge you for it. And that's unusual, because typically the really good content is behind the paywall. Yeah. So that's going to be a change as well. Mr. Daugherty's going to do a damn good job to bring some real value and education to the lineup, to the curriculum. People may get used to not paying for it.
Do you think, do either of you think that this is going to really kick off that quality free education? Or do you think it's going to be a teaser that's then going to flip into, next year, for $50?
So that was actually my first question. When I first read about the Tommapalooza, right? And by the way, it is on my bucket list to be a palooza. I need to be this. At some point, there'll be an Avi-Palooza. I don't know what it'll be about, but I need an Avi-Palooza. I'm just saying. So that being said, that was actually my first question is, if I'm a CEDIA educator, is my question, wait, so they're giving away stuff that I'm trying to sell? Or am I looking at this as the teaser, right? Is this just the coming attractions, and later on I'm going to be asked to buy a ticket? So I don't know. I don't know what the business model here is. Yeah. So it'll be interesting to see how it plays out.
Yeah, we'll have to watch that.
The big part of it too is that although the original thought whenever I thought of HTSA is that I never really put technology in with it. I always thought it was the Home Theater Association. And so it always felt like it was centered around the AV side of things. And one of the interesting things, if you take a look at the course layout, they're not touching that heavily on the AV side of things. It truly is a technology primer, right? They're inviting a lighting designer in. to talk about other aspects, who I'm going to assume is friendly to the integrator community, as opposed to some of the other relationships that we have with the greater design community. And so I think Avi's right, is that, it definitely has a teaser, kind of the amuse-bouche of technology to walk on in.
That's fantastic. Gentlemen, we'll see how that plays out in, like 2 weeks from now. If speaking of Expo, if you have not registered yet, you can go and get a free floor pass by entering AVNation as the code there to get you into the floor. All right, gentlemen, let's move on to our next story of the day. This comes to us from CE Pro, how the security industry is pressuring AT&T to postpone the 3G sunset. Essentially, the pandemic seems to have delayed some work to get the 3G sunset off the ground. So the alarm industry is pushing to have that pushed back. That's kind of, yeah, well, it'll be all right. What's interesting about this is it's not like this just popped up, Avi, as you and I were talking about from the start, before we came on the show. They've been working at this for a while. This has been in the works for not as long as the FCC's 600 megahertz elimination, but pretty close.
It's coming up on 5 years, believe it or not.
Yeah.
So it's been quite a while.
It's been a minute. So, Avi, when you see this, when you read through this story, and I know you've been around this world a little bit, probably more so than either myself or Uncle Richie, when you see this, is this just a factor of that industry where, I don't want to say they're not proactive, but when you go in and tell someone that their system's going to stop working unless they either, re-sign a contract so you can roll that cost into that contract, or there's going to be a bill associated with that because it's just going to stop working. That's a tough one to play on. What's the industry response to this going to be?
So like the 2G to 3G sunset, right? We've been through this before as an industry. So this is really, not only is it not new, it's not, new ground to plow. Excuse me. But unfortunately, the security industry is very conservative when they change technologies. They like to test things, and justifiably so. We're talking about life safety, right? If that alarm goes off and you need help, right, the communications link is absolute, right? That 4 nines is not enough. So by all means, there is conservatism, if you will, in changing a technology. That being said, though, this has been announced and been going on for quite a while. And so I look at this announcement with a little bit of caution and a little bit of side eye. Because on the one hand, we've known that this is coming about, and there are some cool technologies out there and cool radios. I mean, Alula has been drumming this drum for quite a while, and they've got some great upgrade paths, and they can replace radios very easily. But as a integrator, as a security professional, you got to get out and do it. You got to be willing to go to your customers and say, hey, there's a new technology out there, and we're going to touch your system. And sometimes the alarm professionals are hesitant to do that because it does remind their clients that, hey, I'm still paying $30 a month for this thing, and geez, I can't remember the last time I armed it, right? Yeah. And so you get some attrition that way, and so that's fearful. The smart alarm integrators are wrapping this into a marketing program, right? And I can tell you a bunch of them that actually made money on the 3G change because they went to their clients and said, hey, great news, man, there's some new technology out there, and we're going to upgrade your system, and we're going to refresh it and check all your contacts and your batteries, and we're going to re-sign you up because we're so excited to have you as a customer. And that's when it works. But if you take the AICC's look at it, and I completely understand where they're coming from, it's scary, right? They're down to essentially 8 months, even less than that now. Let's see, February. So they're down to almost 6 months of swapping these things out. And you're talking about millions of radios. You're not just talking about a couple of 100,000 or, a few in one neighborhood. You're talking about millions of radios spread across a large geographic area. There's going to be pain. And I don't know that AT&T is going to necessarily acquiesce. As we saw in the article, the government has attempted to at least communicate with them and see, what their thoughts are. But again, they can't roll out their 5G, and AT&T, by all accounts, is way behind in their 5G rollout. They can't roll out some of their 5G stuff until they twilight their 3G stuff. And so they're under a lot of pressure, from a lot of different sectors to get this 5G network up and running. It's going to be hard to convince them not to twilight this, or sunset, to use the proper phrase, the 3G. So it's going to, I'm watching it very carefully, and I've got some clients that are bringing out some product, one in particular that we're announcing in the next month or so to help mitigate some of this problem as well.
Very good. Rich, when you see this, I'm very conflicted on this story. This is one of those ones that annoys me because it doesn't seem to be a hard problem. It's just, again, parts of our industry seem to be just absolutely terrible at communication and communicating not a complicated story to their clients. And what I found kind of interesting was in the response to the letter that the senators that the group lobbied to send a letter to AT&T came back saying that of their subscriber base, this is AT&T talking, that only 5% of their paid subscribers were still using a 3G dependent handset, which again, that's referencing a cell phone or an iPad or a mobile device with a radio. That's not necessarily referencing alarm panels, because I know even within my company and the limited alarms we do, we got a lot of 3G still out there. There's a large number. Is this mainly, Rich? Is this mainly just another glaring example of terrible communication on the part of our channel, or a subset of our channel, I guess?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you have the larger alarm companies, who I'm a customer of. 6 months, 7 months ago said, hey, we're changing this over for your service to be, for us to continue your service and everything else. Here are the appointment time. I mean, again, it was right. It is sales 101, right? You eliminated the yes or no question and you entered with an option. Yeah. This is changing over. Here are your appointment options. Please choose from one of them. Right? I mean, it was a typical sales close, right? It was, you never opened the no. And unfortunately, the integrator base, it is definitely, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Again, let's take a look. Let's also consider, we just had our last NTSC transmission, July 13th. The analog sunset was instituted in 2006. Yeah. Right? There are integrators I know who are still scrambling to find ways to maintain their analog connections for clients. So it's crazy. It's crazy. But some clients are adverse to change. Integrators, and we've always talked about this, where there is this self-confidence issue that occurs with being a technology advisor and being able to say, I'm good at what I do. I'm advising you for a reason, and I'm trying to protect you from yourself. And again, rather than giving a client bad news, they just kind of continue and say yes, or they hide from it until it becomes an issue. And then at that point, it's too late. And then you've got you've got a crisis of confidence, and et cetera, et cetera. And now you're trying to kind of hero in at the last minute. You're losing money. And so again, like Avi said, is that you can treat it as an opportunity, or you can treat it as a problem. The integrators who are succeeding with it are treating it as an opportunity. We're seeing the same thing with Wi-Fi 6. There are tons of integrators I know that haven't even broached the subject with their clients. Not even the fact that it's available, but that these services and the technology is moving at a faster pace. Now, again, 25 years ago, 20 years ago, 15 years ago, I could sit with a client and say, yeah, you're going to get a good 10, 15 years out of this system based on how we see everything moving. But within the past 10 years, we've seen such an acceleration in commoditizing technology. And again, it's a software world, and software is eating the hardware of the world. Mobile is driving this. We've said it over and over and over again. The key to all of this is mobile. Because there is, again, I got an 11-year-old walking around with one of these. And there's a whole lot more users to tap into from that market than are the security. So this is a little bit different, I think, than the analog sunset from the AV side, because it was a very limited pool, right? You've got 1 set per household, 2 set per household. You look at mobile, you've got 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, devices per household. That adds up quickly. So, and unlike the FCC, AT&T holds all the keys. They own the spectrum.
Yeah, right.
So at that point, they can say, yeah, great, guys, we really appreciate it, but we're not really beholden to the American people so much as we're beholden to our stockholders. And that makes it a very difficult conversation because the government can't intercede and say, whoop, sorry about that. And that's, that's a discussion for a whole other show about the use of technology.
Well, and I think you can't overlook the fact either that it's not like this is a quick little, just flip the switch and all of a sudden it's over. This is a process that they've had in the works probably since before they announced it, from a technician and a rollout and a location based. Like, this is hundreds of thousands of man hours that are going to be scheduled into decommissioning these devices and, starting that next phase rollout. This is not, I'm going to argue they're not going to delay this at all.
And you're absolutely right, Matt. There's also equipment in cell towers that has reached its end of life, that has broken down. There are no replacements for it at this point, or if there are replacements, they're hard to get. To play both sides to the middle, they're both dealing with the supply chain issues. So the AICC is arguing that the supply issues are limiting the amount of 4G radios that are available, and they're right. But on the flip side, AT&T is arguing that they can't get replacements for their 3G equipment because of the supply chain issues, and they're right. So you're as the article says, and I like the metaphor, so I'll reuse it. There's 2 trains coming down the tracks at each other. Yeah. The problem is there's really no place for either train to go. They're both going down the tracks, and they're going to collide at some point, and there's going to be some pain. There's definitely going to be. You're going to find. Look, there's going to be a story out there somewhere that one of the news outlets is going to pick up that somebody's house got broken into, or God forbid there was a fire, and the 3G radio signal couldn't get through because they had already upgraded that 3G tower. And I hope to heaven it doesn't happen, but unfortunately, it's gonna. And we're just going to have to deal with it. And again, the integrators really just have to step up, look at places that are most vulnerable, fire systems, for instance, healthcare facilities. Look at the most vulnerable, look at the most active accounts that they have, and prioritize them to get them switched first. And I know that there are integrators out there doing that today that are, looking at their logs. They have all the data, so they know where these sensitive systems are. It's just a question of rolling enough trucks, getting the equipment in place, and having those backups in place. So it's going to be interesting how it all rolls out.
Yeah, roll out. I like what you did there. All right, gentlemen, I was going to hit one more, but we are going to be out of time. I know you were super excited about that one. So we will push this to next week. Gentlemen, thank you both so much for joining us. Mr. Fregosa, if people want to connect with you, learn more about Fregosa Design, where can they do that?
You can type my name into the interwebs, and something interesting tends to pop up. Business related, at least I hope.
Use safe
but
search,
you can also,
ladies and gentlemen.
Safe search, exactly. DuckDuckGo me. That's it. You can find us. The company website is fregosadesign.com. You probably find me on Twitter at rfregosa. But as always, I want to say the best place I hope you can find me would be on AVNation.tv and our suite of shows, obviously here with Matt, or on AV-Week with Tim, or hopefully you'll see our show on the State of the Control System Programming side of things with my partner Steve Greenblatt, of State of Control. But any of our varied shows, there's always good stuff here. So please try to find me here, and along the same way, see if you can give our sponsors a shout while you're at it.
We always appreciate that. Mr. Rosenthal, thank you, sir, for joining us. If people want to connect with you, learn more about Bluesav, how can they do that?
It's very easy. Just go to our website, www.bluesalve.com, and check us out. I will be at CEDIA with a bunch of clients. I hope to see lots of smiling faces there. We had a very successful ISC West. It's nice to press the flesh again. You'll excuse the expression, right? But it was a lot of fun. I'm looking forward to seeing everybody at the show.
Excellent. Thank you for joining us as well, both of you, as well as everyone listening. If you'd like to connect with me, you can find me on Twitter at Matt D. Scott and pretty much every other social platform. But more importantly, please visit AVNation.tv, where you'll find this show as well as a wide variety of other shows with all the verticals that we cover. When you visit the website, please take a moment to check out our supporters. We are extremely thankful for their support and ask that you support them as well. Thanks again for watching. That's all the time we have for this episode of ResiWeek.